I have to get back into the groove with the Killers by State series. Right. I finished all 50, notes, right? So I'm good on that. I'm almost done making the thumbnails of them. So now all I gotta do is record and post them for y'all. And today we are on episode 12, where we are going to hit at Idaho. Okay, let's get into it. So, the most notorious serial killers who have called Idaho their hunting ground. Our journey will begin in the early 1900s with Lyda Southard, also known as Lady Bluebeard. Southard's story is one of deceit and death, as she was convicted of poisoning her spouses and even her own daughter to collect insurance money. Her actions cast a shadow over the town of Twin Falls and remain a haunting piece of Idaho's history. Fast forward to the 70s, where the Lewis Clark Valley was terrorized by the Snake River Killer. This unidentified assailant was linked to the disappearance and deaths of several young women, leaving a trail of fear and unanswered questions. In more recent times, the state was shocked by the actions of Joseph Edward Duncan III, who committed a series of brutal murders from 1996 to 2005. His crimes, which included the murder of a family in Wolf Lodge, Idaho, brought national attention and a renewed sense of vulnerability to the local communities. Understanding the patterns and psychology behind these killers is crucial for prevention and closure. It's a painful chapter, but one that cannot be ignored if we hope to protect future generations. While these stories are a somber reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, they also highlight the resilience of the communities affected and the timeless efforts of law enforcement to bring justice to the victims and their families. Idaho has a number of unsolved cases that have puzzled law enforcement and intrigued the public. Some notable ones in history: Terrence Woods Jr., a TV producer who went missing while filming Discovery's Gold Rush in Ora Grande, Idaho on October 19th, 2022. Patricia Otto, missing since September 2nd, 1976, from Lewiston, Idaho. Lonnie Lemon disappeared from Pocatello, Idaho on May 30th, 1993. Will Hendrick, a murder case from 1999 in northern Idaho. Harold Neil Bonner, a murder case dating back to 1945 in northern Idaho. Milo Glenn Dameron, a murder case from 1959 in central Idaho. Yazzie Plentywood Wounds, a murder case from 2007 in Boise. And these cases represent just a fraction of the unsolved mysteries that continue to haunt Idaho. Each case is a reminder of the importance of continued investigation and the hope that one day these cold cases will be solved, bringing closure to the families and communities affected. The longest serving, hold on, before I even fucking go on to that bit. If you're interested in more details about those cases, they are often listed in local, county, and state law enforcement or investigative agencies' websites, as well as the databases dedicated to unsolved murders. Anyway, back to what I was going to say. The longest serving death row inmate in Idaho history is Thomas Creech. He has spent approximately 44 years on death row after multiple murder convictions. Creech was convicted of killing 2 people in Valley County in 1974, initially sentenced to death. However, after an appeal, right, his sentence was reduced to life in prison. Recently, an Attic County judge issued a death warrant for Creech, scheduling his execution for, the next month. Despite the lengthy time spent on death row, Creech's case remains a significant part of Idaho's criminal justice history. Public opinion on the death penalty in Idaho, as well as across the U.S., has seen a significant shift over time. Some key points reflecting this change: historical perspective, capital punishment has been a part of Idaho's legal system since its territorial days in 1864. However, like many states, Idaho's death penalty laws were invalidated by the U.S. Supreme Court in the 1972 case Furman versus Georgia, leading to a temporary halt on executions till 1976. Recent developments. In recent years, there's been a noticeable decline in public support for the death penalty. For instance, a Pew poll from 2015 found that the support for capital punishment had dropped 56%, down from almost three-quarters of the century in 1996. The failed execution of Idaho's longest-serving death row inmate, Thomas Creech, in February 2024, this year, raised many questions and concerns about the death penalty's application. Experts suggest that incidents contribute to a loss of confidence and support among the public. The state legislature legalized the firing squad in 2023 due to concerns about the availability of lethal injection drugs. This decision, along with other factors, may influence public opinion as questions about the process and its transparency persist. The trend in Idaho reflects a broader national shift, where there is a downward trend in the number of new death sentences. This suggests that juries are becoming more reluctant to sentence people to death, which could be indicative of the changing public sentiment. Overall, the combination of legal challenges, high-profile cases, and evolving societal values seems to be leading to a gradual decline in support for the death penalty in Idaho. The death penalty in Idaho debate, as in many places, involves a range of arguments both for and against. In a previous video, I've covered this. Basically, some of the arguments for the death penalty are the deterrence, retribution, legal precedent, and the arguments against it are the risk of wrongful execution, cruel and unusual punishment, the cost, and racial disparities. These arguments reflect a complex and deeply personal issue that touches on legal, moral, and practical considerations. The debate continues as society's views evolve and new legal and ethical questions arise. In Idaho, as in many other states, there are alternatives to the death penalty that aim to provide severe punishment while addressing some of the concerns associated with capital punishment. Some primary alternatives: life without parole. This is the common alternative to the death penalty, where the convicted individual is sentenced to spend the rest of their life in prison without the possibility of parole. Restitution and rehabilitation programs. These programs focus on compensating victims or their families and rehabilitating the offender, although they are more commonly applied to less severe cases. Long-term incarceration with parole eligibility. For some crimes, long-term sentences with the possibility of parole after a significant period can serve as an alternative, allowing for eventual reintegration into society under strict conditions, though. Additionally, Idaho has reinstated the firing squad as an alternate method to execution should lethal injection not be available. This, however, is not an alternative to the death penalty, but rather an alternative method to carrying it out. These alternatives are part of the ongoing discussions about the most effective and ethical ways to administer justice for the most serious crimes. They reflect a balance between the need for punishment and concerns about the death penalty's finality, costs, and moral implications. And on that, I will end episode 12. Episode 13 follows shortly after this. Okay, bye!